All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's Regional Report, a GPEC virtual series. Very exciting report today. We have a Mayor's Roundtable coming up. We'll get to that in just a moment. My name is Eric Sperling. I'm the Managing Director here at the Social Television Network. If you're not familiar with STN, we are a local streaming network based here in downtown Phoenix. All of our shows and segments are dedicated to local leadership, community growth, and actionable solutions. And in fact, you can find recent regional reports now available to stream on our app. And that's where our relationship with GPEC and their CEO, Chris Camacho, started. If you're not familiar with GPEC, or the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, they are our regional economic development organization representing 22 cities and towns and Maricopa County. It is their mission to recruit businesses to the market and enhance competitiveness here in the region. And again, so excited to team up with them now to bring you this virtual series. If you're just joining us, we like to go through some housekeeping items. Today's webinar will last for about an hour. Audience members are muted and without video. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared on the GPEC website and social media. You can submit questions using the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Now, should you experience any technical difficulties, as always, just try logging out, logging back on, and see if that fixes it. And then we do invite you to share this information on social media. Please feel free to tag GPEC and use the hashtag Greater Phoenix Together where appropriate. We do want to mention that next week's regional report will be on pivoting your business model. That will be Wednesday, May 6th from 3 to 4. So look for that invite coming into your inbox. Today we're hearing from 4 mayors. We have Mayor Kate Gallego, City of Phoenix, joining us, Mayor John Giles from the City of Mesa, Mayor Craig McFarland from Casa Grande, and Mayor Ann Tovar from the City of Tolleson. But before we get to the Mayor's Roundtable, GPEC CEO Chris Camacho is going to join us for a few moments. Chris, good to see you again. You're going to update us, right? I know you've been doing the data thing, staying busy. So before we get to the Mayor's Roundtable, a quick update from Chris on the status of our local economy.
Great, thank you, Eric. And first of all, I want to thank all the mayors for taking time out of their busy schedules to join us today. They're running harder or as hard, I know, as we are to support their communities. And it's obviously very visible from our standpoint, all the great work that's being done at the local level. Certainly with not only our mayors and our supervisors at Maricopa County, but our city economic developers have been in the data bunkers I described last week with us. And as I look at each of the respective mayors here, each of the team members have been working with our team diligently to ensure that the delivery system to help small business is very present. We've now talked with our network of economic developers to thousands of companies, thousands of small businesses that are in need today, and are bringing all the resources that are applicable at the federal level and at the regional and city level to support. Can you hear me okay? I'm getting a little notice here. Still good?
We got you, Chris. A little bit of feedback, okay, but just typical with the connection. So you're good. Okay.
Well, what I'm going to ask Bethany to do here quickly is, and Bethany's done an incredible job on our side organizing these webinars. There's several hundred, over 400 looks like, people joining us today. And just to give you a brief kind of outline of the work that's been conducted in short order just in the last month. So obviously COVID, it's hard to believe, but COVID was, our first case was clarified or recognized back in late January. And fast forward to what occurred with simple moves and quick moves that were undertaken at our organization to move to a virtual model. You can see through the first part of March and assessing our client portfolio back in middle of March, all the way towards all the resources that are available through the gpec.org website. And it not only highlights all the COVID resources, but a number of our partner organizations are just doing incredible work. The Arizona Commerce Authority, Arizona Chamber, we partnered with them on a number of items. More specifically, recently, I've heard great news with the Hispanic Chamber, where they've launched a number of micro grant programs out to help the small business community. In addition, the Local First Arizona and Kimber Lanning's work, I just get amazed. I talked to her Friday night for about an hour about all the micro loans that they've been able to place out in the marketplace. So again, it's just the spirit of cooperation and level of intensity that our partners bring to this crisis, I think, is just incredibly important. And obviously last week, the announcement was made in the formal signing of the Paycheck Protection Program, which we covered in detail. last week. And now we're in the midst of day 2 of that. So yesterday there were some bumps in the SBA technology, which sounds like that's getting, that's got worked on yesterday. And we're hoping that many more of our SMBs file applications as they're in need for these dollars. So as you can just see here, just reinforced in short order the amount of work that's gone into quickly pivoting GPEC resources now into just what you're seeing on the screen here. If you fast forward one more screen here, Bethany, I want to cover kind of what do we foresee, or what did we foresee in the last less than 30 days of work. So as you'll see here reflected in this timeline, we had a number of these regional reports now brought to you digitally. This is probably the new normal for the next several months. And as you look at the engagement we've had with our economic developers on a weekly basis, I mean, they are out conducting the hard work on the ground with their chambers and with the respective companies, trying to identify the need. And then they're giving us the feedback loop system that allows us to help, again, to raise the profile and need of the overarching regional SMB market. One thing also that I think is important that in addition to creating all of this work in Spanish, as well for those SMBs that are monolingual Spanish speakers, is our business development team hasn't missed a beat. We've cultivated relationships with over 1,000 companies nationally and internationally as we look at, as we come out of this, how well positioned are we regionally to take advantage of this momentum. We were one of the fastest growing markets in the United States entering this recession or this downturn, and I do expect us to emerge with one of the strongest recoveries as well. So that's why we've really tried to separate our COVID emergency response with our business development team. And as you can see here through the timeline, very actively engaging with our global consulting network, as well as our GPEC 100, which is the national consulting arms of the top 4 audit houses. So again, just a lot of just brass knuckles of work has gone into the last few weeks. And just to finish up on this timeline, because I told the mayors I'd only take a few minutes here this morning, is we've conducted extensive outreach with the banks and really tried to give our audience, our members, our partners, real-time feedback. So here's what the banks are saying in terms of their 5 tips for recommendations for improving our PPP application process, to the city level feedback of where the pain is existing within the service sector of our ultra small SMBs, to those that are underbanked, and talking with CPLC and their delivery system with their CDFI. There's so much good work going on in our community, and we wanted to make sure that we're referencing the positive kind of undercurrent that we are seeing here in this region, because that's one thing we're known for, is working together, and hence the Greater Together hashtag. And I would still encourage you, as you have these exciting stories, go tell the world, go tell our story of just the positive news that's happening, obviously, as we're dealing with this healthcare crisis. So that leads us to today with here we're sitting with 4 of the top mayors in the region, and I'm excited to hear their perspectives of how they're on the ground dealing with their own communities, and how we're going to steward this regional approach going forward, and how we'll continue to work together for our citizens and getting this economy back on track. So thanks for the brief time to open this up today, and I'm just excited more so to hear from each of our respective mayors.
Well, that was great, Chris. Thank you so much. And I'm going to just quickly segue over. And on that note, Chris was just talking about telling our story. And Mayor Gagel, I'll start with you. On the road to recovery, Chris was just talking about the positive stories. So what are your keys from the way you see it? And tell us some of those stories that Chris was just alluding to.
Wonderful. Thank you. And thank you to GPEC for helping us position the Phoenix metro area to recover from this, but also to navigate COVID-19. Want to do a particular thanks to Chris, who I consulted with when we were setting up the protections for Phoenix. As many of you know, I did an executive order to try to protect our Phoenix businesses that came out as we were learning that large events had, particularly Chinese New Year's, had led to the spread of the virus in China. And we were facing some very significant events in a parade in Phoenix. I am grateful for GPEC for having data-driven analysis and being a resource for mayors to talk about what this means for the economy. Right now we're seeing a lot of data showing that communities that take this seriously are more likely to succeed economically, and that if we can really do a good job of navigating this, it will position us well for the long term. We've just received some very important information from Arizona State University Biodesign Institute. They are tracking the number of cases and the rate at which COVID-19 is spreading in our community. We have bent the curve. We have slowed the rate. So all of the huge sacrifices that you all have taken are working. They are saving lives. We are slowing the rate. And I just want to start out by saying thank you to everyone for that. I think some of you may know, but I have a close friend who's facing cancer right now and is incredibly vulnerable. One of my family members who held my hand when I gave birth to my son in the hospital has been in the hospital where I cannot visit and hold her hand right now, not with COVID-19, but I just think about folks like that who I am fighting for when we slow the spread. And so I want to thank you, because those folks are part of our community and will also contribute to making sure we have a strong Phoenix. We are both still triaging the virus, trying to make sure we get more testing in this community and better data, while also thinking about economic recovery. Our amazing folks in community and economic development, led by Chris Mackey, have talked to more than 5,000 businesses about what they need, and we've implemented some programs that I will talk about later to support them. I want to thank both Chris Mackey and Chris Camacho for being a great partner. I was preparing for a conversation with the President's Economic Advisor, Larry Kudlow, about the week before the Congress renewed the Paycheck Protection Program, and the Chris's were great at helping me talk about which businesses in Arizona did not get aid in the first round, how we can support our very small businesses, those who don't have bank relationships. And I am grateful for the folks at GPEC and our economic developers who are sharing the information right now that Chris mentioned about how to get a loan. And please, if you know folks who are considering it, now is the time to apply. We have financial institutions that are taking new customers. If you don't have a great banking relationship right now, I believe Arizona didn't get our fair share in round one. And so we want to do everything we can to make sure our small businesses do get our fair share in round two that started yesterday.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Gallego. As Chris mentioned last Friday, out of the about 150,000 small businesses in Arizona, as he mentioned, only about 17% did receive funding. And I'm going to switch gears and go over to Mayor Giles, City of Mesa. On that note, Chris was mentioning how we were positioned so strongly before all of this. And now talking about recovery, do you expect us to emerge, as Chris mentioned, emerge just feeling strong and in a good position, even though, as we just mentioned, the first round of funding didn't really go Arizona's way. We expect that to hopefully get better on the second round here. What are the key steps to recovery in your mind?
Yeah, I think there's reasons for us to be optimistic. Given that this is really kind of an artificially, the economic impact of this is not caused by market-driven forces, it's caused by health reasons. And so hopefully, I know as a community in Mesa, we have been anticipating an economic downturn for several years, and we've been increasing our reserves and adding to that in anticipation of a recession type activity. This certainly came on a lot sooner and a lot more in a severe fashion than we were anticipating. But I'm grateful that at least, to some extent, we feel like we have been anticipating a downturn in the economy. And I am optimistic that we'll recover quickly. We had, as everyone knows on this call, we had amazing momentum as a region and individually as cities going on. But I don't have a crystal ball like anyone else, but I for whatever reason, I am maybe I'm optimistic, and I think that the next few weeks are really going to be very telling. It'll be interesting to see how we transition out of the stay-at-home order, to what extent we incorporate social distancing into our daily lives as individuals and as businesses, and we adapt so that we can hopefully as soon as possible, start engaging in economic activity again to bounce back as quickly as possible. I want to join Kate, however, in thanking GPEC and the other economic development organizations in our communities and regionally for understanding that what we're kind of shifting gears a little bit and understanding that they've been very good at attracting folks, from out of town to come to our communities over the last several years. Now we need to kind of, be more retrospective and business retention, I think is the top priority for all of us right now. And I know that our economic development officers have shifted to becoming ombudsmen and advocates with the federal PPP and SBA and all. We're trying to very quickly become experts so that we can share that expertise with the business community. So thanks to GPEC, thanks to everyone on this call who's involved in business retention and helping us allow our businesses to weather the storm and to get all of the resources that the federal government has deposited in some of our bank accounts. We want to turn that around as quickly as possible and get it on the street and get it to those people that can use it to rehab our economy.
Well, thank you, Mayor Giles. I want to bring Mayor McFarland from Casa Grande into the discussion here. Mayor Giles just said we don't have a crystal ball. What are your thoughts here as we approach the road to recovery?
Well, thank you, Eric, and thanks also to my fellow mayors for being here, and to GPEC also for putting this on. In Casa Grande, we're kind of uniquely positioned. We have some great opportunities that are sitting on our doorstep with the plant, the new Lucid automotive plant that's being built. It's ahead of schedule, still planned to put off its first vehicle by December of this year. And, the construction has continued. A lot of our industry is essential industry, so it continued to work. We have about 27 large manufacturing facilities here. The only one that really has gotten hurt is Hexcel because they're so based on the airline industry, and so they lost about 30% of their employees here this last week. So that was a bit of a tough call. But the others have ramped up. We have Abbott that makes a lot of the Infamil product is all made here, and they've had to actually ramp up because of excess or extended needs that people have. And I think we'll come out of it okay. I think where we're going to get hurt is in our 21 budgets. I think our 20 budget will probably not get hurt that badly. We typically are very conservative in terms of our budgeting. So we'll probably come in on our budget probably down about maybe 6%, or not 6%, I'm sorry, 0.6%, maybe 1% down this year because of all the industry we do have. Where we're getting hurt is in the small business. There are restaurants and bars. That's really where most of the damage is, and they're hurting pretty badly right now. So if we can weather and get through this as quick as possible, I think we'll come out okay. And then I think we'll be probably down about 7 to 8% next year in 21 in terms of our revenues. So that's the part. That's where we're looking. We're looking out into our 21 budget that starts in July. That's where we're going to feel the pain.
All right, Mayor McFarland, I want to transition now, bring in Mayor Tovar from Tolleson. He was just talking about weathering the storm. How have you guys done that? And let's talk about your approach to recovery.
Thank you, Eric. I would say here in the city of Tolleson, we're very similar in regards to the city of Casa Grande, where we do have quite a bit of manufacturing in our small niche community that are considered essential workers. And so they've been working round the clock since this pandemic. Where our concern for the city of Tolleson lies is with our small businesses. They too are seeing the issues and troubles of getting the relief from the first round. So we're encouraging them, to work hand in hand, not only with us and with our city and with our staff to get them on speed on, what is happening and how they can make sure that their application is complete and ready. And also very thankful for the work that the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is doing. Many of our small businesses here are minority owned, and they are definitely feeling the impact. So I'm grateful for the resources that are not only catering to their needs, but also in GPEC and translating important documents into Spanish as well too. Again, we are anticipating in next year's budget for some cuts as well too, but we are very hopeful that we can turn this around. I'm very hopeful, as the other mayors are, is, we're ready to make sure that all of our services can be maintained for our constituency.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Tovar. I want to remind everyone this is a live webinar, and the audience, we have a very large audience right now. You can use that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to submit questions. We're going to get to some of those questions right now, and I'll bring Mayor Gallego back in. Question coming in: as you make decisions regarding the reopening of your city, what is the formula you've adopted for balancing the health of your citizens versus the health of the economy?
I believe you cannot separate the two, and that communities that react responsibly to this virus will come out longer or come out stronger in the long term. We've seen that if we look at examples from Asia and from Europe, that the communities that took this seriously have not had as devastating of impacts as those that did not, although everyone is suffering. And I think that is true here. We are looking very much at the federal guidelines for reopening, which talk about a gradual reopening with social distancing. We are trying to do our part to make sure that our businesses know about resources, whether it be from the Centers for Disease Control or the Food and Drug Administration, to understand how you can open safely and what are the precautions. We're trying to do a good job of sharing health information. How long does the virus persist on different surfaces? What are proven ways to clean? How do we reopen in a responsible way and move forward? We have also really relied on our universities. As someone who worked in economic development before running for office, I know that our universities are huge drivers, but previously I'd focused on the workforce and making sure we had engineers, computer scientists. Today, we have seen how essential our universities are in getting us health information and in stepping up testing. I think, like many elected officials and business leaders, I want to be making decisions based on good data. Testing is so essential right now. Arizona State University has stepped up to try to understand how COVID is moving through our community, but also to help us with essential workers such as our first responders. And that's data about testing in our first responders also helps us understand how COVID is spreading in our community so that we can make good decisions. University of Arizona is going to test 250,000 Arizonans. All of that allows us to respond and to make the right decisions. We know that there is huge suffering. I think today is the 1-month anniversary since the governor's stay-at-home order. And we know everyone's life has changed as a response to this, but we want to make sure that we are doing our part to support our health system and make sure that our hospitals can get through this with as much strength as possible. I did support the decision to open up our hospitals for more types of procedures. There's huge need in this community and huge economic impact from that. I think we will have a gradual reopening where we will see businesses open, but what used to be capacity at a restaurant will not be the same levels as before, and we'll see more health and safety precautions such as wearing these beloved masks. Chris alluded to the power of manufacturing in Arizona right now, and as have Mayor McFarland and Tovar, and they are also secret weapons for mayors in this time period. I think if you watch the news, you may have heard about Phoenix and other cities' struggle to get protective equipment. It has been very difficult to know what is coming from China and some overseas suppliers. but I have so much greater confidence in the masks that Honeywell will start manufacturing this Friday, or the protective gowns that Fabric in Tempe will be making, and the great partnership we've had in helping companies like that scale up. Fabric's had a great partnership with Flynn and with others, including our economic development folks, as they try to scale up. Honeywell will be manufacturing those famous N95 masks in City of Phoenix property. And so those are the moments as mayor when you see our companies answer the call to keep our healthcare workers and our first responders safe. Those are the moments when you're just so proud to be part of this community, and you know that together we will come through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have highlighted that so often on these regional reports, the local companies that are stepping up to provide these resources. We have more Q&A coming in, but before we do that, I want to bring in Mayor Giles on the same question. City of Mesa, have you adopted a formula for balancing the health versus the economy as you work to reopen?
Well, I agree with Kate. I think you have to take, you can't really separate the two and have a credible response to this. The public, I think we have to treat it first and foremost as a public health emergency, or we lose credibility and people will be frustrated for all the sacrifices that we've gone through to this point, just to squander them, in a rush to get back to full economic strength. So. I agree that it's going to be a phased-in approach. I mean, I think we're all very anxious to see the governor's announcement this week. Prior to the conclusion of the stay-at-home order on the 30th, to see what his ideas are on how we make that transition. But absolutely, I think we're going to see our daily lives are going to be masks and hand sanitizer, for the foreseeable future. And I think the public is anxious to be given some positive things to do, rather than just stay home. That people are anxious to exercise good hygiene and follow good public health guidelines, so that we can responsibly re-engage economically and start to mitigate, not just the economic damage that's been done to our community, but really the emotional and mental health, of all of us. It has really been put on the shelf here for a month or more, and it's time for us to try to find some healthy activities, both economically, but also mentally and emotionally.
Thank you, Mayor Giles. And we do have a question coming in. And Mayor McFarland, you were talking about next year's budget, so I'll send this question your way. What have we learned from this experience that can be used for changes and innovated going forward, for example, regarding like tax code and things like that?
Well, tax code, problem with Arizona is that we're very sales tax focused. I mean, that's 80% of our revenue comes from sales tax. And so when you shut down an economy, it hurts us a lot. And so, trying to figure out what we're going to do moving forward, because if we, here in Casa Grande, for example, if we raise our property tax, which we're limited by statute on how much we can raise it, even if it's a half a cent on property tax, it only raises about $500,000. So it doesn't raise a lot of money. And so moving forward, we have to either be smarter about how we spend our money and manage our budgets, and make sure that we're pushing the right buttons in terms of any additional revenues. The other piece is we also have a lot of state trust land that's located in the city of Casa Grande. And if we could get some of that state trust land off the books and put it into private hands, it would also bring in some additional dollars. Now, we don't get a lot of property tax, but it does go to help the schools. It does go to help the county and the state. So I don't know, moving forward, we're going to try and look at some of those state trust lands, see if that's an opportunity for additional revenues. But I think just managing our budget, managing our sales tax collections, moving forward is going to be interesting to see what happens in this in 21 in our 21 budget.
Mayor McFarland, thank you. Mayor Tovar, let's bring you in on the same question, talking about innovations and changes in response that you see adopting pretty quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question for us to start thinking about what proactive changes that can happen with cities and towns across Arizona. I know many of them have been hit hard because of the lack of or will be with the lack of the sales tax revenue that might be coming in. So I would say, I would anticipate for us to have greater flexibility when it comes to designing different policy at the state level as well too, to allow us to see that income as well, and also at the state level, and having that flexibility, whether it be in new law that is created for cities and towns as well too. Right now, we're taking a proactive approach in the city of Tolleson of just, go overing our future budget as well too. We're willing to do our part in regards to infrastructure needs here in the city. We are just at the very beginning stages of building our city hall. We will continue in building our city hall as well during this time as well.
Thank you, Mayor Tovar. We spent a considerable amount of time talking about small businesses and the transition many small businesses have had to make to this new norm, working from home, a virtual environment. What we're doing today, we're on a Zoom calls constantly. Mayor Gallego, small businesses have had to adjust and work through this new normal. Phoenix is one of the largest cities in America. What has that transition been like? Making an entire city function in this new normal?
We know that our small businesses help create the great city that is so vibrant, and that the reason people are moving here is in large part due to our small businesses. We have more than 18,000 in Phoenix, and we know they are suffering so hard. So again, thank you to GPEC, Chris Camacho, and our economic development folks for pushing for financial resources for our small businesses. We were proud, in partnership with the Phoenix Industrial Development Authority and the Arizona Community Foundation, to roll out grants for our small businesses. We just closed a round for smallest businesses, and then the City Council has since then approved a new program, micro grants for our smallest businesses as well, that we're going to be rolling out soon, trying to support those small businesses and do what we can in conjunction with the Small Business Administration and that program to make sure that they make it through. We are trying to put as many services online as possible. We've seen a huge increase in the amount of people who are using our electronic permitting and plan review through our Planning and Development Department. We also just rolled out virtual inspections for some of the smaller upgrades someone might be making. So probably useful as well for homeowners out there. If you are going to put in a new sewer line, you can now use this phone to get an inspection. I hope this is a win regardless of COVID. It means you have much more control over scheduling the timing, and you can go out with your phone, get it done. But in the era of COVID-19, it also protects our inspector and the person receiving the inspection from having human interaction, which normally we love. I guess you still have human interaction, but it is not the type that can transmit a virus. So at the City of Phoenix, we are trying to put as many services online as possible. We're trying to have open and productive meetings, but let people do them from their homes. I think that's good news for small businesses, regardless of the virus. It means that you can be multitasking while you wait for your agenda item, and that you can weigh in while dealing with the myriad of challenges that small business owners have. So I hope we as a region can continue the amazing momentum we've had on smart city and smart government before, and take the good parts of technology that we've learned through COVID-19 to the next level. We have already had one of the top regional collaborations between local governments on smart government before COVID-19, and that leaves us in a good position as we recover from the virus to continue to innovate and lead.
Yeah, and we just got a follow-up question for you. We just got done talking about the virtual environment, and then you mentioned human interaction. And this question comes in. The state of Texas announced yesterday that they are going to open restaurants and movie theaters at 25% capacity, then ramp that up to 50% in 2 weeks. Do you feel we will get to that point anytime soon?
So right now, Governor Doug Ducey has put in an executive order, and he has made it clear he is the decision maker on these issues. States have the ability to say we will let cities make decisions, and some states are looking at that. For example, Governor Cuomo has spoken in New York about the fact that New York City faces a very different level of infection and challenge that some parts of upstate New York are not currently facing based on their data. They've had very aggressive testing in New York and are trying to use that to make smart decisions. Governor Ducey used to have phone calls, or his staff did daily with mayors at the beginning of the virus, and they have canceled that. So my guess is as good as anyone else's what we will have in the state of Arizona. Many governors have chosen to follow the federal guidelines. That includes saying that we will start reopening with social distancing after we have 14 days of declines in COVID and COVID-like diagnoses. I would encourage you to take a look at the federal guidelines, because I do think they are a model many communities should and will use. And so they talk about reopening restaurants gradually without full capacity. There's stages, and bars with more density would reopen at a later stage. So that's something that I think makes sense for Arizona, but I will be watching the press conference with all of you to learn what our future holds.
Mayor Giles, let's bring you in on that same question because of so many restaurants, bars, movie theaters in the city of Mesa. When do you anticipate us getting to a point where we can reopen some of those?
Well, Kate accurately described the legal lay of the land in Arizona. The governor has decided what are essential services, and what the role of the cities can and can't be in regulating some of those. There is a huge role, however, for cities in the COVID response. Unlike a lot of other federal funding situations, many of the larger cities in the United States receive funding directly through the CARES Act. For cities over 500,000, and Mesa made that cut. So in Arizona, you've got Phoenix and Mesa and Tucson that all have direct funding. Cities like Tolleson and Casa Grande will receive that money, but it will come through the state. But so at this point, the larger cities are already geared up, and we've received, last week, federal government deposited $90+ million in the city of Mesa bank account, much more in Phoenix's account. So we have been very aggressively working to like I said earlier, figure out how we can get that money out of our bank account and into the local economy. And so there are a lot of small business programs that we will be launching at a city level that I'm sure many of the folks that are listening to this call, need to pay particular attention. That they might be used to always working through state government, county government, federal government. There's direct assistance available through the three largest cities in the state for small business programs. So this Thursday we'll be launching the Mesa Cares program that will include utility assistance, rent assistance, other direct benefits for small businesses in the city of Mesa.
Mayor Giles, thank you so much. And Mayor McFarland, I saw you, cross your fingers there when talking about funding, and I think a lot of small businesses are doing that exact same thing. So what are you telling small businesses when you have those conversations? They've done everything, they've applied, they're just sitting there with their fingers crossed, waiting to see if they will get funding. So what are those conversations like for you with the small businesses?
Well, very, very few of our small businesses received any funding in the first go round. So all of them have applications in. They're all working with their banks to try and make sure that they get some funding in this round of especially the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program. And so I'm telling them, because we've had conversations also with Senator Sinema, her department has been very aggressive in terms of asking the mayors to have their small businesses send to her email a follow-up on their loan or any other issue that they might be having especially with this round of funding. So I've been very aggressive in asking all of my small businesses who have applied and are in the loop or in the queue right now to try and get this last round of funding, at least this particular round, to send it to Cinema's office. And so they've been doing that, and she has been responding to them. So that's been positive. We were very disappointed in the first round when all the small businesses put in their funding, and especially the ones who were dealing with big banks. If all the small businesses that had accounts with big banks, none of them got funded. It was very disappointing. And so we're hoping that this round will be different. If not, it's going to be a tough haul for some of these small mom and pops.
Yeah, Mayor Tovar, I'll bring you in and again, we have a very large live audience right now submitting questions, and I'm going to address one right now, and I'll bring Mayor Tovar in. What are the mayors learning from this experience we're all going through, and how they forecast how we'll act differently if or when the COVID situation resurges again in the fall or winter of this year or early 21?
I think that's something that every single mayor across Arizona is worried about in regards to a resurgence of COVID come fall time. I know just in our city, we are doing everything to be proactive in regards to maintaining social distancing and, CDC practices here in our community and also within our small businesses as well too. I know that's one of the biggest fears that we have, and making sure that we're prepared for when or if a second wave hits, that we're prepared as a city, better prepared than we were, with this initial wave as well too, and having the resources. As mentioned, being one of a small city and not having the direct allocation, it's making sure that we are doing everything possible as a city to help our small businesses during these tough times. Any city-owned property that we have, our current tenants are not paying any type of rent, and right now within their water bill or trash bill as well too. So we're trying to be as creative as possible for our small businesses. We've worked in conjunction with our small businesses in creating a census contest every week as well too, encouraging our residents to participate online or on the phone to fill out their census. And at that time, they're entered into a contest where weekly we change restaurants. So everyone that does their census for that week submits their screenshot that they've completed the census, and from there they actually earn a $50 gift card to that restaurant of that week, and that's all in the city of Tolleson.
Mayor Tovar, thank you. And Mayor Gallego, I'll bring you in on the same question. You talked earlier about we've bent the curve, but are we prepared in the event of a resurgence this fall?
We know that there is great innovation happening on medical treatments for COVID, that there has been some forward motion and some successes with clinical treatments and everything from, I think they call it convalescent plasma, where they do take plasma from people who have had the virus and use it as a treatment, to motion towards medical treatment. We don't expect a vaccine by this fall, and that will be the key. When we get a vaccine, that will be the more important milestone in all of this. Huge credit to the researchers locally who are part of that. I used to talk about how if cancer's cured, we think the path could go through Phoenix because of the amazing biomedical innovation in this community, but the same could be said for our Arizona universities and some of their private sector partners in supporting that famous vaccine. We are learning more and more about what cleaning treatments work, and I think it's been very positive that people have learned more about just basic safety measures such as masks. Even my 3-year-old is well-versed in that you have to spend 20 seconds washing your hands. So these are life lessons we probably all should have learned before this, but we do need to continue to have the best possible research and safety precautions. I am hopeful by the fall, a lot of the supply chain challenges with protective equipment will have worked out. When many governors went towards stay-at-home orders, they talked about several different concerns. They talked about the capacity of our healthcare system and preventing doctors and nurses from making heartbreaking choices about who lives and who dies. But they also talked about the need to get more testing and the need to get more protective equipment. The last 2 weeks in Arizona have been hugely important in more testing. We are seeing private sector partners ramp up in a big way. We are also seeing more support from the Health and Human Services Administration, which went to a lot of other markets before ours. That free testing is so essential. Right now, there does appear to be correlations between higher income areas and who's getting tested. If we are to truly understand what is happening with the virus in our community, you need to have access to testing regardless of your income level, regardless of whether or not you own a car. And we've just taken significant steps forward in that. All of this preparation will help us in the fall.
Mayor Gallego, I have a follow-up for you. You just mentioned your 3-year-old. I know many members of the audience right now are sitting at home on this call, and their kids are in another room online right now learning, going to school, again, adapting to this new virtual learning environment. So a question here regarding the school system. What kind of partnerships or support is being provided to local public school districts?
So I first want to give huge recognition to people who provide care for our children and our teachers. Heroic, important work, and certainly trying to be mayor and mom at the same time with, I just have one child, but my child's teachers usually have so many more. We should recognize that the important work that our educators had been doing and never forget it. Right now I'm lucky my son is at daddy daycare and so will not be making an appearance on this webinar, but he has appeared on many, and unfortunately he has learned how to turn off the camera when he would like more attention from mom. He's a very precocious 3-year-old and keeping me on my toes. I've been trying to get him, the ASU has good online curriculum, including for preschoolers, and that goes for kids of all ages. So if you don't have curriculum coming from a school, that's one tool that I would recommend. We talk with our school districts regularly about how we can support them, and want to again recognize them. They have retooled so quickly, many passing out laptops, many also being still a primary source of food for families. I was talking with a school board member yesterday who's trying to figure out what fall will look like and whether they expect to have the same class sizes and enrollment. And we are all trying to figure out what is safe for our community and what makes sense. Among the things we are working with schools on is increasing access to internet for children who do not have that at home right now. And that connectivity is so important. The business community, again, has stepped up in a big way to try to get laptops out and try to get more internet. I think we have several telecommunication providers who are on right now. And if you have ideas and want to work with the city to increase access, we would love to partner with you or work directly with the school districts. But we know any gaps that existed before COVID-19 have only been exacerbated by challenges such as connectivity. And I think that's something mayors are working on. All of the mayors here today are trying to work closely with our school districts. They are our future as cities, and we have to support our students.
Yeah, Mayor Giles, how are you guys doing over at the city of Mesa supporting the public schools during this time?
Well, you know, that's the city of Mesa, the government has always been, we feel very closely aligned with our school districts. I know that that's true for the other communities that are here as well, but that's kind of been our brand is you know, when a new family moves to the Valley of the Sun, people, if they show up in a station wagon or minivan, you just point to Mesa because that's we try to be very engaged with our school districts, particularly our K-12 districts. So the first part of your question earlier was, what lessons is there to learn here? And I think some of the weaknesses that have been exposed, as a result of this pandemic and our preparation and anticipation of a second round and later in the year, are the things we've been talking about is working more closely with our school districts and making sure that we have a strong partnership with them. I think some of the most productive meetings I've been a party to in the last few weeks have been those with our school superintendents, because they really are on the front lines of as we indicated, food service, and really in supporting families who like Kate's, that are have young children at home, and parents have to juggle trying to provide a living and at the same time be the teacher. So I think hopefully that's one of the lessons learned here. Pandemics are no longer a hypothetical. We have to be prepared. We have to have reliable PPE. We have to have strong partnerships as far as food distribution goes. We have to be very engaged with our school districts. We have to also, and I think we need to point out that one of the other weaknesses I think this is exposed is we've got a lot of disconnected elderly in our community. A few weeks ago, I was at a food bank event, and I was horrified that we had not only elderly people, but elderly people that were obviously physically compromised, that were standing in line, and they were so desperate as a result of food insecurity that they were, in my mind, literally putting their lives at risk, by coming out to these types of events. So I think we, as with any challenge, we'll emerge from this a stronger community. We will have, hopefully we're going to learn these lessons about caring for our disconnected elderly, being more engaged with our school districts, having these stronger partnerships that will make us a better community.
Mayor Giles, thank you. And a question coming in, and we'll bring Mayor McFarland back into the discussion now. Mayor Giles was just talking about food insecurity, our elderly population. Here's a question coming in. We have a huge concern for the homeless and veterans that do not have advocates at this time for their housing and food. In general, how can we help more folks at this time?
Well, we have a program called CG Cares, and it's a program that we've started about a year and a half ago now, and so we're working with our local CARA, the community housing organization, so that they actually run the CG Cares program. It's a resource center, and so we've been actually working with the homeless. We have a list of things that they need. We put together the list through CARA and through our CG Cares, and we're putting together packages for the homeless. I know in Phoenix, I think they're also using some of the hotels to put the homeless up in, and I know Mayor Gallegos has been all over that program. So, I mean, I think just listening to the needs of the people, having a place for them to go, making sure that they're fed, which we've been very active through our senior center and also through our churches. A lot of our churches have programs. We have two very large food banks that have been extremely busy, as I know all of them have been up in the Phoenix market as well, with thousands of cars lined up for food. And we're trying to also make sure that we get some of that food to our homeless as well. So it just, it's an ongoing situation. We're trying to get them housed and use the program called Housing First, so that we can get them into even if it's a trailer or if it's some sort of a multifamily location. So we're trying to get them off the street, get them help, and we're using our churches to do some of that, as well as our CG Cares program, which has been very successful. In fact, we did this the point in time count here back in February, where we go out and we count the homeless, and a number of homeless count has gone down since we implemented this program. So it's we feel it's been very successful, and it's working. But I think our veterans, you mentioned our veterans, we have a program called HOHP, which is help our veterans program, and they've been very active through this whole coronavirus process that we've been going through. So they have a place where they house some of the veterans. It's brand new also. So we've been pretty fortunate in terms of our community, because it's very giving. Casa Grande is a very giving community. From a per capita standpoint, I think it's like fourth in the state of Arizona in terms of its per capita giving. So we feel pretty fortunate. We're lucky to have a very cohesive community, working together and really trying to tackle all of and help everybody, from seniors to veterans to our students. We recognize we even have some students that are homeless. So those are some of the most vulnerable that we need to make sure we keep an eye out for and try and help. And working with the schools, we've been able to do that as well. So I think we've managed pretty well. The biggest challenge we're going to have is really, hopefully, some of our small businesses will survive this. The statistics are not very good. After a business has been closed for 30 days or longer, there's a very large percentage of them that will go out of business. And that's why this whole PPP program and the federal government participation is so important. But it's got to get to the small business, not to the big businesses. So that's our biggest challenge right now.
All right, everyone, as we approach the end of today's regional report, I'm going to offer up an opportunity for all of you to just present some of your final takeaways. Of a lot of information presented today, a lot going on day to day within your communities. And Mayor Tovar, I will start with you. Just your final thoughts here, as we have spent an hour now talking about the COVID-19 crisis, the health crisis, and the economic impact. Just your final takeaways here.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for GPEC for having this very informative webinar. I know for the city of Tolleson, we're definitely all in this together. We want to do our part to make sure that our citizens are safe and making sure that our small businesses can succeed. We are open to any suggestions, any new policy that we can put in place to make sure that we're implementing the best practices as well too, and just in making sure that we recover, we're able to be of service to our community. I know many have mentioned the schools, the churches, our nonprofits. Right now, I know they are being strained to the max capacity, and funding is a big part of their survival. So definitely an advocate to making sure that those organizations receive funding as well too, and making sure that they're sustainable, and making sure our recovery in our community is possible for our constituency. But again, very thankful and grateful for the work that GPEC is doing. The data is very important in making sure that we get proper information so that we can take action, responsible action, in reopening our economy here in Arizona. But just grateful to be part of the team.
Thank you, Mayor Tovar. Mayor McFarland, some final thoughts as we wrap up here?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I think it was already hit, but I think this recovery is going to come in phases, and our opening of America, the opening up of America is going to have to come in phases. I think the plan that the president did lay out is a good template. I think that as we move through this, and I hope that this week sometime the governor's, I know he's going to have to talk up at some point in time because his order ends this Thursday. So hopefully as we move forward, he'll give some additional guidance. We'll move into a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of a gradual opening. I don't think, the new norm is not going to be as it was before. Again, it's going to be that new norm. It's going to be social distancing. It's going to be washing your hands. It's going to be cleaning surfaces. It's going to be, we're going to start out with limiting the number of people that based on the capacity in a restaurant. So that's the part we just need to make sure we manage everybody's expectations so that we don't get a lot of frustrated citizens out there, because this is a trying time, and it's wearing on everybody. I see it in emails that I get. So, and I'm sure every mayor here could tell you about some constituents that have issues with everything that we're doing. So Again, thanks to GPEC. Thanks for putting this together. Really appreciate it. And you all stay safe.
All right, Mayor Giles, your final thoughts here.
Well, amen to what my brother and sister mayors here have shared with you. I think one of the strengths of Arizona and of our region is the way that we work so collaboratively together with organizations.
I think we just lost Mayor Giles. There he is.
Excuse me. That's what
You're back.
happens when your phone is tied to your iPad. Somebody calls you in the middle of your very dramatic closing argument. So sorry about that. But we've learned a lot, you know, and I'm proud of the way that all of us collectively have responded to this. I think we will be much better prepared the next time something like this, you know, comes across our community. And I just want to reiterate, I think the audience here is a small business or a business oriented crowd. And I just want you to, again, remind you that the city of Mesa, you know, has a critical role to play in responding to this crisis. And we do have a large amount of federal resources, and we are doing our best to direct them to the small business community. So we have a hotline, you know, 480-644-CARE, C-A-R-E. Our business development office is very engaged in helping small business people to navigate through what resources and incentives are available. We will be launching this Thursday our small business program offering utility and rent assistance to small businesses. So I'm anxious if you can help us get the word out, that not just through traditional means, but also look to city government for some help getting through this time. And again, thank you to everyone for the way you've responded and looked out, not just for you and your families and your businesses, but for those around you that are in need. Much appreciated.
Mayor Giles, thank you. Let's send it now over to Mayor Gallego, City of Phoenix.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to partnering with you as the Phoenix metro area recovers and innovates. We know that some regions will come out of this with particular momentum and strength, and I'm hopeful that we can all work together to make sure that we take our strengths as a region and build upon them. We already have great innovation in areas such as telemedicine and online education. We already have some of the very limited domestic manufacturing of pharmaceuticals in this market. So I hope we can, as we have a push towards making more things in this community and this country, that we can work together to build upon our strengths. We have a strong tourism industry, and they will need particular support from elected officials and from business leaders. At the city, we are going to do our part to make sure our airport and convention facilities are among the safest out there, and that we have the safety precautions that are needed so that the public can feel that it is safe and responsible to travel again. Our office is already reaching out to conventions that were scheduled to be with us right now and encouraging them to rebook at a future date. So we are trying to look forward, as we still very much are involved in responding. We may likely work with this organization and others to try to get new tools, including at the state legislature, to be able to respond and recover, whether that be on the financing side or to allow cities to do more to support key areas, whether it be redeveloping shopping malls or investing in our construction workforce to help us lead the way into recovery. So it's going to be a great partnership, but with the help and support of all of you, we will come out of this, and I hope as a much stronger community.
All right, Mayor Gallego, thank you to all the mayors for joining us here today. Before we pause for that final screenshot, I just want to remind everybody that's still watching that our next regional report, we talked so much about the small businesses, will be on pivoting your business model. That will be Wednesday, May 6th from 3 to 4 o'clock. And so much of our discussion today was on the resources available for small businesses. I want to remind everybody you can check out gpec.org. There's an entire page of resources there for COVID-19, especially again for the small businesses. All right, panelists, we're going to look straight into the screen. We're going to pause for about 3 to 5 seconds for a great smile here that we'll be sharing on social media. So here we go. All right, Bethany over at GPEC says we got it. Again, one more time, just thank you all so much. I know your schedules are so busy for spending the hour with us here this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll see everybody next time.
Take care, everybody.